Archetypal embodiment as a doorway to access your personal power. This is what's on offer for today's episode. Hello, my name is Sofia Winmasikat. I am the host of the Unshakable Soul podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Archetypes. This has been my home in terms of playing around in all the different energies of our multifaceted nature for about 2 years now. I've really dove into the archetypes. For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to keep it to 4 feminine archetypes, but let me clarify that there are many different archetypes that we can tap into, and that includes masculine archetypes. But for today, we're going to discuss 4 main feminine archetypes. I'm going to start with an introduction of what archetypes are and why it's important to actually bring them into our lives and into our awareness, first of all. And then the next section of this conversation will be diving into the 4 basic feminine archetypes and to see how they're showing up, perhaps in their shadow expression, and as well in their divine expression, and then everything in between, which we can see as developing. And I'll offer some journaling prompts and just some contemplation to anchor into yourself and your life, to notice, okay, I have all this information that came to me. Where do I land? Where does this law land for me personally? Okay. And weaving throughout them all, I'll offer some simple practices to just start getting a feel of each one of them and how they could perhaps be showing up in your life and how to embody their qualities and characteristics. Okay? So, let's begin by opening up with the many faces of the feminine. So as women, we contain multitudes of faces. It's not only one. And we're not meant to just be this one thing. What tends to happen is that we over-identify with one role, one identity, which brings about certain qualities and characteristics in our behaviors. Okay? As well as in our beliefs. So, a lot of the women that I know and that I can feel in the collective, at least here in the first world modern culture, it's the identification with the mother. And the mother is one of the many archetypes that we house in us. But a lot of us have embodied the mother in a way that's neglecting herself. So the mother is a beautiful archetype when expressed in her divine form. She's the nurturer, she nourishes, she creates the hearth and the home for everybody to flourish in. She also nourishes herself because she knows how that's important for other people's well-being too. Her own well-being is as important as the well-being of others. Right? She's this beautiful vessel of creation. Right? She takes in and then she gives out tenfolds more. Okay? For the most part, we are now observing a lot of women that are perhaps mothers, but that feel very disconnected from their bodies, that are depleted, burnt out, exhausted, confused, that are resentful perhaps. And this is the part where we realize that something has been running the show. That perhaps there's a belief that as a woman, I am only valuable and acknowledged if I am the people-pleasing, over-giving mother. Right? Or there's also a pride in being the single mom that can hold it all together. Right? And this is where we realize, okay, if I've only been living in one expression of all the different colors in my rainbow, then at one point, I'm either going to implode or explode. Okay? And this is when we see women going through maybe a quarter or midlife crisis, when they kind of say fuck you to everybody. They do a drastic change in their lives. They either get a divorce, they go traveling, they take a sabbatical, they cut their hair, they get a motorcycle, whatever. They start sleeping around, right? And it's all this bottling up, for the most part, of suppressed or denied or neglected desires and needs. And we can relate these desires and needs from stemming from all the different facets of your feminine. Because they all bring about their own needs. A need for expression, a need to create their own unique flavoring. But if we suppress it because we think we can only be one thing, then that will inevitably cause friction and conflict within us, which will be reflected outside of us in our relationships. Okay? And right now, there is a fatigue in this, just a general fatigue. And me being in the space of creating offerings in the space of health and well-being, I'm noticing also fatigue in all these self-improvement guides and information that we can be consuming to get to know ourselves better, to enhance our well-being, which could all have the great intention. But I'm noticing that it's actually adding to our overwhelm. And I'm saying that not only as an observation out there, but also primarily as an observation for myself, having walked this path. Realizing that, have I been consuming more than I've been creating? So what I want to offer you here is, instead of perhaps listening to this episode as okay, let me gather more information to add more things to do perhaps on my overflowing things of list of things to do, I'd like to offer this as a soul remembrance, as a self-remembrance. This is a journey back to your wholeness, to your aliveness, to your authenticity, to your own unique self-expression. All the facets of the feminine are within you. And it's up to us to notice which ones are dormant, which ones are activating, which ones are in shadow expression, which ones are in divine expression. There's nothing more for you to do. It's actually a clearing out of the noise in the space so that more of your authenticity can come out and flourish and be seen. But first it has to be seen and acknowledged by you. It has to be honored, respected, and loved. Okay. And let me preface this also as by saying that this journey is not linear and it's not neat and tidy and clear. The feminine is multidimensional. She moves in mysterious ways. You can't fucking catch her. You can't even put words to her. We're putting words because it kind of helps our mind make sense of things. But she is cyclical. She's ever changing. She's always flowing. She's always creating. You can't contain her. So can we also approach this conversation and ourselves with that same curiosity and awe and wonder. Okay? And in this conversation, I'm going to weave in the moon, because the moon is very feminine. She's connected to our own tides, to the water, the currents of life coursing through our bodies, our blood, and our bones. She's the one that affects our mood a lot, that affects our creativity, our energy. And when we start connecting to the moon, we start realizing, oh, I'm shifting. I don't only need to be on this one mode all the time. If I give myself permission, I can navigate this sea of different flavors and textures. It could be the ocean that's raging in one moment, and then I could also be the calm, still water that has a little undercurrent to it. Okay. So, archetypal embodiment, it's much more than a concept to learn. It is a lived experience. It's practiced in your everyday life. It's felt in your body. That's why it's embodiment. Okay, so the invitation here is, yes, we are going to be learning mentally concepts, and perhaps something that's new to you, perhaps it's not. But the invitation is always the integration into your everyday life. And that comes back to how you show up and your energy. So, that was a long introduction, but here we go. So a little bit about archetypes, because maybe this is the first time you hear archetypes, maybe you heard it and you're like, what? What is this? Just give me the Coles notes. Okay. So archetypes, on one level, help us describe and understand and analyze, to a degree, behavioral patterns and character traits in human beings. That's one level. On another level, maybe a little bit deeper level, they're actually the gateways to tap into our greatest potential. And we get to call on them, on their different strengths, on their energies, on their qualities within ourselves. So we're sourcing it from within so that we can rise up and share with the world what we're here to share, our own medicine, our own uniqueness. Okay, because that's essentially what we're here for. Be our own expression of love and how it wants to move through us. Okay? And each feminine archetype is a unique expression of feminine energy. Okay, remember, feminine energy is multidimensional. There's a lot of different flavorings to her, a lot of textures. And we all have access to them. This is very important to remember. It has nothing to do with anything out there. It does not take a man. It does not take a podcast, a book, an ayahuasca ceremony, a psilocybin mushroom trip. These are all enablers, but they're ultimately guiding you. They're all guiding you to you. And you get to access it for yourself in any given moment with awareness, with attention, with intention. Okay. And here's the magic. When we start to meet these many faces we have within ourselves, this is when we stop trying to fit into a mold that was never ours to fit into. This is self-sovereignty. This is self-agency and responsibility. We begin to live from truth. Our own truth and our authenticity. And there's no greater gift to the world than us embodying our truth. It is a breath of fresh air in a world that's so confused. Because we're just all distracting ourselves and numbing out. It is time to become the change we wish to see. And that begins with you and getting to know yourself and embracing yourself and accepting yourself and allowing yourself to come more and more online. Okay? So, if you're ready, let's begin. You can listen to this transmission lying down, just listening. If you are one that captures information more easily, writing things, of course, by all means, go for it. But really try and feel the resonance in your body as I speak through these 4 archetypes. Okay? So that it's a full body experience, not just a mental one. So I'm going to go now through 4 faces of the feminine. Now, there are others, and I'm going to mention them, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to mention 4, and they're tied to the phases of the moon, the 4 main phases of the moon. So, this is when it becomes super important, when we connect to the moon phases, when we connect to nature. They all have their seasons too, and the elements associated to them. So we get to embody them even more into our everyday life. Okay? I'm going to begin with the crone. There's other names to these archetypes. So feel for the one that you'd like to take with you. So the crone could also be known as the mystic, the witch, the medicine woman, the wise and elder, the wise woman. Okay, she's associated with the new moon. So when the moon is dark in the sky. This is associated with the season of winter. Okay, and the element of earth. So her energy is very grounding. Just feel into like the wizened woman, the mystic, the crone. She prioritizes inner peace. She's introspection. She rests and meditates. She tells the truth, and she's a space holder. She actually embodies all of the other archetypes because she's lived through all the various phases of life, through all the cycles of death, of rebirth. So she can hold all of the archetypes within her. There's a deep acceptance in her aura. She's unfazed by life. She's not rushing anywhere. Doesn't need to prove herself. Okay. So, in her shadow, though, she can be a bit withdrawn. She can be not willing to change, socially isolating herself, being feared, so not wanting to be seen. If you see the wizened woman in her like woman cave in the darkness, she doesn't really maybe want to come out. Okay, she may be seen also as irrelevant. So it's like, why would I share this wisdom I have? Right? She could also be a little bit emotionally frigid. Okay. So to feel into the mystic, okay, we can first tap into her during the new moon. So this is usually when your energy is at its lowest, which is very conducive to go within, to take that time for inner reflection, for introspection, to nurture yourself through more grounding practices. So maybe it's yoga nidra, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's a gentle yin or restorative practice. Maybe it's enjoying a quiet night in if you're always used to going out all the time. You're journaling, you're maybe reading a book by candlelight. Okay. You're walking alone in nature. So I like to call them my little shamanic walks when I'm going out unplugged, long walks in nature at a slower pace. Okay? We're also listening more than we're speaking. So her energy is really in her presence. She doesn't need to speak much. When she speaks, it's pure truth. She doesn't need many words to evoke what she's wanting to say. Okay. And as a space holder, she listens more than she speaks. And just by being there, people are already receiving their medicine. Yeah, she kind of acts like a mirror. Okay, another way to embody her is to have a spiritual path that you're on. And what do I mean about that? To devote yourself to a spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you pray right before bed or each morning at your altar. Maybe you go to your favorite tree in the forest. Right? Maybe you're preparing nourishing food for yourself and you make that your practice of self-nourishment. Right? So again, earth element, we're looking at the body. We're looking at food as medicine. We're looking at earth, grounding, stability. Okay? So whatever belief system you're in, doesn't matter the lineage, are you devoted to that path? Are you practicing? Are you creating the space to reconnect with yourself? That's what she's offering. Are you connecting with your truth? Okay. So the wizened woman, winter. When we have honored the wizened woman, we've rested, we've had the introspection, and that's also the time that we incubate, that we're very intuitive as women. We're in the dark womb. We're planting seeds for new growth. So when the moon starts to wax again, then thus comes the maiden and the spring season. The element of air. Okay? Just like a fresh breeze of air that's whipping through your hair and you're burning it into your whole body to enliven yourself. You start having your energy rise up. Okay? And this is the phase, and the maiden, when we anchor into her, we anchor into this quality and characteristics of innocence, playfulness, curiosity, new beginnings, optimism, and hope. Right? We're coming out of the cave. We're emerging again. Right? The shadow side of this, though, is naivety, comparison, maybe emotional codependency, right? Or maybe you're scattered, okay? Because you're getting more energy, you're getting this air element coming through that is wanting to be channeled. Here is when you start taking action on the dream that's been incubated within you. So you have the energy for it. This is when you are pulling your allies together. You're taking one step in front of the other. Right? This is when you're wanting to start something different, perhaps. And it could be so simple, like going to a different coffee shop, taking a different route to work, going for that weekend trip, or a road trip. Right? And we're adding this element of play. Because there's a seriousness to the crone. There's like this grounded, earthy vibe to her of like, this is your truth. What do you want? Feel it, speak it. What do you want? What do you want? And it could bring about sometimes a very like, oh, heaviness. So the maiden is here to lighten the mood a little bit and remind us that, well, in the pursuit of your dreams, you can have fun. It can be pleasurable, right? So there is a sexuality tied into her. There's a pleasure component tied into her, right? She is fearless because think of the Maiden voyages, the first ship, the first trip of a ship, right? You could also think back on your first love, your first crush, your first anything. Like you didn't really know what to expect. Like, yeah, maybe some people told you beware of that, but most people are like, oh, you live by experience. So you have to try out by yourself and see. And then we learn over time, and wisdom grows with experience and integration of those experiences and lessons from life. But the Maiden, if we approached the path that we're walking on with curiosity, with openness, with playfulness, it's something completely new. This helps us not recreate from the past, which will inevitably keep us in the same loops, attracting the same people, the same places, and energy. So to embody the Maiden, we try something new. Maybe wear something that feels playful. Get a haircut. As I mentioned, take a new route to work. If you're always in that routine, if you're a person that's always sticking to routines, try something new. Move your body with lightness. Change your physical environment, like a spring cleaning. Clean out your closet. Let yourself dream. And take action. I'll add that one in. You have the energy. Take even one action, just in alignment with your dream or with whatever that you desire to experience and create. Okay. So we're taking action. We're in spring season, air element, breath of fresh air. We're going for it. And then comes the full moon. This is the mother or the creatrix. She's in her fullness and her radiance. She's basking in her light. She's given birth to her project. And she's nurturing now. She's nurturing and she's nourishing. She's tending to her garden. She's watering. She's giving life. This is the water element. She allows life to flow. She's deeply connected to her cycles. There's a lot of compassion to her. Right? This is when in your cycle you're the most extroverted, when you're the most inclined to be out there in the world. This is when you're the most fertile, not only for babies, but for ideas. Now her shadow is overgiving, lack of boundaries, self-neglect, difficulty letting go of the caretaker role. So she's perhaps nurturing something longer than she should. Okay, so the medicine for the mother and how we can embody her is to nourish not only a project or person, but also to nourish ourselves. So this is when we start realizing, am I in the shadow expression of this archetype or in the divine, in its superpowers? Right? So even if you're in the superpower, you're like, yes, I'm nourishing and I feel I have boundaries, that's great. Continue doing that. Maybe there's another archetype that you want to focus on. Okay. For the mother, it's nourishing yourself for a lot of mothers out there. Having a bath, getting a massage, taking yourself out on a date, asking for help, allowing yourself to be held. placing a hand on your womb and a hand on your heart and just offering yourself this touch, this simple act of presence each morning can be so powerful. Just asking yourself, what do I need right now? And then gifting that to yourself. And saying no to what drains you. The people, the places, the projects. Okay. Yeah. So we're in summer. The water. Oh. So we're in our radiance. The mother is radiant. She's also all about pleasure. She also has a sexuality to her. But that sexuality is a bit different than the other ones because it's related to procreation. Okay, we're creating something together. Now we're coming into fall season. All right, it's getting a bit cooler, drier. Qualities are different in the air. It's a little erratic. It's up and down. This is when we come into the wild woman phase, or the enchantress, seductress, the alchemist too. This is the waning gibbous, the waning moon. Okay, so from the fullness, the illumination, now slowly starting to recede back into darkness, this is the integration. And this is what I see so many women are now entering into. Women that are in my space are usually around 40 to 60 years old. And the wild woman tends to come online a lot. If our own authenticity and needs have been neglected for perhaps years or decades. So she is really about truth. But unlike the crone that already knows truth, wild woman doesn't yet. Like, she's feeling it. She's in the fire. So the element associated with the wild woman is the fire. Because she is burning through all the fucking bullshit that she's been through. And not only other people's bullshit, her own bullshit. And all the ways that she has been lying to herself. This is arguably one of the crunchiest and most challenging faces of the feminine because you're confronted with truth. But inevitably it will liberate you if you allow it to transform you. Okay? So this is when chaos becomes a catalyst for change and transformation, where she's literally flipping the fucking table and saying, fuck this, right? This is when she starts speaking her truth and honoring her boundaries, especially if they were not honored or even spoken in the phase before, in her fullness, when she was out there in the world, in her mother archetype, right? If there was not enough balance in the mother archetype of nurturing me and nurturing we, the wild woman's gonna come pretty strong, right? So her superpower is that she's teaching you about, well, what's authentically true to you? Or have you been pleasing everybody else? She has a sensual power to her. She just loves pleasure for the sake of pleasure, not only for the sake of procreation. She's in just pleasure for pleasure. Right? She's not afraid of pain because she knows it's tied also to how much she can hold and feel pleasure. It's on the same spectrum. So she eats pain. And she transmutes it to love, to deeper love for herself, deeper love for life, and for her own path. Okay. In her shadow, though, she can have rage without direction. So she's just fucking raging wildfire. Okay. There could be self-sabotage. There could be a lot of shame, especially when her sensuality is coming back online, perhaps after years of neglect. She could be very emotionally volatile. And usually comes out as anger, as like a sting. And I know her very well because I've been through all her phases, and she still comes out strong in me. Okay? So what can we do to embody her in a healthy way? We can dance, especially in the dark. Okay, there's something like deep about the wild woman. There's this primal instinct to her. Of course, you can dance during the day, but her energy becomes more of like underworld, like come hither, opening Pandora's box. Let me show you what you haven't been willing to see for the past years or decades. Sacred rage and expressing and channeling your rage in a healthy way is so important. So punching a pillow, screaming into your hands. You're just allowing that energy to rise. Letting go of the perfectionism. This is when the chaos comes in. Like, it's okay if not everything's in order. Okay, so if you're in your mother archetype and you're trying to have everything in order, everybody's okay, but I'm actually trying to over control because I fear that things are gonna get chaotic if I don't keep them in order. It's actually quite distressing for me when everything else is chaotic. Right? So it's easier for me to have everything in control. But the opportunity with the wild woman is to realize chaos is actually a catalyst for clarity and deeper transformation and deeper truth. Okay? So there's a lot of emotional alchemy for the wild woman. And she gets to channel this emotion into creative self-expression. Whether that's singing, dancing, or writing, journaling, shaking. Cathartic release is really great for her. And allowing herself also to be heard. So speaking to a confidant, one that she trusts, is very important too. And she can share what she's going through. Okay. So, those are the 4 basic feminine archetypes that I wanted to share with you today. And I want to offer a little reflection here. But before I do so, I want to mention that there are other archetypes, let alone masculine archetypes. Let me know if you want me to go into them. I'd be happy to do so. There's also the lover, there's the queen, there's the sage, there's the huntress, to name a few. Okay? And they can fall into those 4 main feminine archetypes, but sometimes they're a bit off on their own, just like the queen. The queen, I would put it in its own category. The lover, you could feel into the mother as mixing well together. Okay, and the huntress, you can weave her into the maiden. But again, like, they're just offering different flavorings, and we get to integrate them together. And the beauty is that they also get to learn from each other. So maybe now you're noticing, okay, I'm really familiar with the crone. Like I'm really introspective, I'm really in my own world, my spiritual practice is on point. But maybe you're noticing like, well, I feel kind of alone and disconnected from the outer world, right? So this is when maybe the maiden could be helpful to you. Which other archetypes would be supportive for you? Maybe it's the mother. The maiden will tell the crone, it's like, lighten up a little bit. Let's go for a walk in the woods. You might be like, okay. Right? They could play with each other. The mother could learn from the wild woman, knowing it's okay to take time for yourself, to set your boundaries. Right? Just like the wild woman could learn from the mother. It's like, it's okay. It's okay, you can embrace yourself and take space for your emotions and nourish yourself. The maiden can learn from the wild woman. So the maiden again is off, she's pursuing her goals. She's out there, she's a little bit naive. And she could learn from the wild woman with her discernment. The wild woman has more experience, so she discerns bullshit really quickly. So they can help each other. So here's a reflection for you. Which archetype feels most alive and dominant in your life right now? Which one feels neglected, silent, or asleep within you? Okay. And which one has been calling you to come out? Maybe it's the one that's asleep and dormant, but maybe it's not. Okay, what part of you has been wanting to come out a lot? And if you listened closely and gave yourself the space to feel into your body, what would she say or ask of you today, this month, the rest of the year? What does she need from you to feel seen? So you can journal about this. You can record a voice note if you'd like. Or maybe even take a walk in nature and find a nice spot to just contemplate and see what comes up. Okay. So here's a reminder that each face, each archetype of your feminine essence holds deep wisdom. And it's not about fixing anything. It's not even about fixing if you're in the shadow expression of the mother. It's about listening deeply to what she needs and seeing who her allies are in the other archetypes and adjusting your lifestyle and your behaviors and your beliefs so that she can come to her divine expression. That's it. Okay. So it's not about embodying them all at once. Okay, we choose one. And try her on. And go through the reflection questions and see, okay, which is the archetype that I'm most called to embody more of? What does she need from me right now in my everyday life to feel more seen and safe to come out? Okay. And yes, each phase of your life, each cycle of the moon will bring about more strongly a certain archetype. But it does not mean that you cannot embody them each day. There's a rhythm to your days. For example, for me, I wake up in my mystic, earth element, grounding, and in my maiden, newness, opportunities, exploration, right? Optimism, hope. When I settle down to work, my queen comes in, right? The queen and the sage. So we didn't speak about the sage, but the sage is the knowledge, the intellect, the strategist, and the queen is the leader, the confidence. So I embody that to help me, like, when I'm creating and going about my work in the mornings. This is the energy that I have. I'm organizing, I'm planning, and I'm making sure I have that self-worth, so that in the later phase of the day, when I'm bringing out in my oracle through my voice that I'm doing now, that it's authentic, that it's true to me and to what's alive within me. When I cut for lunch and I break, I usually go for a walk or a bike ride or a swim. My huntress comes in. Kind of the wilder aspect, the independent aspect. And I couple her with the mother. I nourish myself with such good food. And I take the time after lunch to just bask in the sun before coming back for a second part of my creative work. Okay. And sometimes the wild woman comes along, the huntress. Right? Sometimes when I'm doing physical activity, there's an emotion that comes up. There's something that's coming up that wants to be moved. So I let her come out. And my days usually close with the mystic again. Just a grounding elements, yin practice, meditation. And also close with the mother. So much self-love. So no matter what happened during the day, I'm still here for me. Yeah. Okay. So, here's how we're going to wrap it up in one little bow as a conclusion. When we align with these archetypes, we can essentially experience a deeper fulfillment in our lives. However, when we're not aligned, this is when we start feeling stuck, right? Or we're connecting a lot to the archetypal shadow expression. So the beauty of these archetypes, again, is that they are effective in any stage of life that you're at, in any phase of growth, and any threshold of change that you are currently experiencing in your life. you can harness these archetypes to improve your overall well-being on a physical level, emotional, mental, spiritual, even financial level. Okay. When you're embodying the divine expression of said archetypes, you start attracting that which you deeply desire. You begin to attract the right things for you. And you'll begin to repel the wrong things for you. Okay? So again, this is not a checklist. It's not something to add to your to-do list. It's something to feel into. Archetypes are attunements because they're within you. It's a remembrance. It's a homecoming to your wholeness. And we help ourselves attune and reconnect with each one of them through simple practices, through our presence, through our intention, and our attention of how we want our energy to flow, where we want it to flow. They're like your inner mirror. They're also like the passport to the life you are destined to live. Okay. And this is when you see magic created from your own depths. When your energy shifts, you realize everything else outside of you shifts. Thank you for listening, for being present. Thank you. And if this conversation spoke to you, if it resonated, then I'm always grateful for you to share with your colleagues, your family, your friends, to whomever, men or female, would enjoy this episode. And if something, particularly for you, stirred something deeper, like a soul remembrance, something that's wanting to be explored more, I'll invite you to join me to my upcoming online workshop series called Spirals of Becoming. It's a 3-day guided passage into reclaiming your feminine power. And that's going to be November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2025. So together we'll journey through this archetypal spiral, and we'll meet your feminine faces, acknowledge their current state of expression, reclaim your creative power, and rise rooted more deeply in your truth and authenticity. Okay, so I broke those into 3 days. The first day is the descent, crone energy, earth element. The second day is the reclamation or the purification. So that's water. It's also fire. There's a bit of wild woman and mothering energy that are woven together. Third day is the emergence. This is the maiden, the huntress, the queen. You become a leader of your own life and you're coming back up in your sovereignty. That's a path of shadow to sovereignty. Okay, so you'll see the link in the description below. If you think one of your friends or family members or colleagues would also enjoy this experience, then always grateful to share that as well. Oh, all right. Take a moment after this episode to step outside, get into your body, do a little shake, get out in nature, and allow everything that you've taken in to integrate into your body, not only up in the mind. All right, loves, until I see you next time, wishing you all the best.